Hey guys, you know the role, out and about like always after work doing some more research on my book. Here in beautiful Hardinsburg, Indiana, at a little place called Old Unity Cemetery. Used to be an old church here. It's funny how history plays out and how fate plays out. So it seems like the more that I drudge up somebody's name in history, the more chances are that I'll be rewarded for that in some way. So I've been talking a lot about a fellow by the name of Preacher-Radcliff, dropping his name here and there over the years, knowing that he was a distiller by way of the Centennial History of Washington County book, as well as the History of Lawrence, Orange, and Washington County book, both of which mention him in passing and don't say much about him. I knew he was associated with a place called Unity Church, and I knew that somewhere in this vicinity was a place called Radcliff Springs where he supposedly ran his whiskey at. So finally today decided, hey, I'm going to go out there and check it out. And man, I'm glad I did, because this is a gorgeous place. Probably, if not my favorite, one of my favorite cemeteries in Washington County. First time I've ever been here and I love it. But anyway, it turns out that coming out here was really a big boon for me. So I've searched and searched the history books, and I've searched Google, and I couldn't find much on Benjamin. And on a whim out here, I just kind of typed his name into Google along with Unity Church and I think Radcliff Springs, and it brought up a piece of genealogy. And man, did his story tie into a lot of things that I've been interested in and trying to research here in Washington County. So first of all, he's from Kentucky. We have a tax record where he paid his taxes $17.50 or something like that in whiskey, down to the dime. And we also have a record of him owning slaves in Kentucky. Now, whether he brought any of those slaves with him to Indiana, where after 6 months they would have been free people, we don't know. But my speculation is that more than likely he probably did. And if he did, then probably they would have worked for him here, and there's a very good possibility that they would have been distillers. Now, that's just speculation on my behalf. And who really knows? I mean, can't really prove it. Now, the local legend is that in the one corner of the cemetery, there were a number of parishioners who were African American, and they could have been some of the people that came up here with Preacher-Radcliff. So, anyways, it goes on after that, and it gets that much more interesting for me. So, apparently, Preacher-Radcliff comes up here to Indiana. He buys a piece of property where the cemetery and the church at one point in time stood. And he gives the cemetery property to the church, and they make him the preacher. So he becomes a preacher-distiller, just like Thomas Green. That's pretty cool in my opinion. They even go on to talk about how he had no problem with whiskey as a preacher, and again, that was pretty common in those days. But one of the really interesting details is that apparently on Sundays from this church, he would preach and occasionally stop here and there to see if he could hear his boys running the still down here over the hill at Radcliff Springs. So I'm going to show you a real quick look around. Church isn't here anymore. There's a shelter house that apparently some descendants of the Radcliffs had built, and they do a family reunion of sorts here in July. I'm going to try to make it back out here for that and talk to them. Maybe they can give me some more details. I'm still searching for Radcliff Springs. I think it's at the base of the hill over here. If it is, I don't know who owns the property, and I'm not going to trespass without knowing who it is. But as I learn more, I'll be writing some stuff up and probably doing some more videos. But for now, let's take a real quick look around. This is the area where I think Radcliff Springs and probably Mr. Radcliff's still house was at. Kind of down over this knoll here. Pretty good drop in there. And then we'll turn around and come back up this direction. Hopefully you guys can see everything. So this is the old gate and the walkway to get into the churchyard. And as I mentioned, the church is no longer here, but the shelter house is apparently built right on top of the church foundation, which is pretty cool. You can still see an old walkway into the church here on the ground. And then kind of look around, you can see where some of the foundation used to be at and some of the footing. And you can imagine a fervent preacher in here speaking to his congregation, which we know did include at least one African American woman, occasionally stopping and yelling at his boys to make sure they were still running his whiskey. As an added bonus, we got a little visitor up here in this corner. Nice nice black snake sitting up there, kind of listening to what we got going on. Anyhow, that's all I got today, and pretty exciting day for me. I found a lot of stuff I didn't really plan on finding, and that's always a plus. Sometimes getting into this old folk history and trying to research people in Washington County, sometimes you're lucky if you find a grave site. If you happen to stumble into the information I did today and stumble onto a site like I did today with references to all the different things that it referenced, that's a real good day for history. But we'll be following up on the history and the mystery of Benjamin Radcliff, Preacher-Distiller. You have a good one.